The sterile white walls of the Nova Labs echoed with the rhythmic hum of unseen machinery. 10-year-old Leon clutched a worn stuffed bear, its single button eye staring blindly ahead. He shuffled along the corridor, his small sneakers barely making a sound against the polished floor. Lost. That's all he could think about. Just lost. The hallway bustled with activity. Lab technicians in blue jumpsuits whizzed past, their faces etched with a focused intensity. Occasionally, Leon would catch a snippet of their conversation jargon about quantum entanglement and cryogenic sleep protocols that swam over his head like alien languages. Suddenly, a booming voice startled him. "Hey Jude, you look like you could use a map." Leon looked up to see a woman with a kind smile and grease stains on her overalls. Her name tag read Maya, robotics engineer. Yeah, Leon mumbled, clutching his bear tighter. "I'm trying to find my dad." Maya crouched down, her eyes meeting his. "What's his name, kiddo?" "Frank Morris," Leon replied, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. A thoughtful crease appeared on Maya's forehead. "Frank Morris. Huh, sounds familiar." "Oh, right. He's on the crew for the..." She hesitated, glancing around, then leaned in conspiratorially. "He's on the crew for the special mission today." Leon's hopeful flicker died. "Mission?" he squeaked. The word had a vaguely ominous ring to it. "Yeah," Maya said, straightening up. "Going out beyond the atmosphere. Gathering some, important stuff. Going out beyond the atmosphere." Leon's voice wobbled, like into space. Maya's smile faltered. "Well, yeah," she admitted. "Something like that." Leon felt a cold pit open in his stomach. But he can't go into space. Not without me." Tears welled up in his eyes. "He promised we'd watch the launch together." Maya knelt down again, her voice gentle. "Listen, kiddo, your dad's doing something really important. Something that could change everything we know about a lot of things. It's a big deal." A tear escaped Leon's eye, tracing a warm path down his cheek. "But what about the black hole?" Maya blinked. "Black hole? What did someone tell you about a black hole?" Confusion clouded Leon's face. "But Dad told me he was going to take a picture of a black hole. He said it was a space mission." Maya's brow furrowed. "A black hole? Now that doesn't sound right. Capturing a picture of a black hole is incredibly dangerous, even for the most seasoned astronauts." Leon's lower lip trembled. "Dangerous, right?" he whimpered, clinging to his bear even tighter. "Well," Maya started cautiously, "there are definitely risks involved. But listen, your dad's a top-notch space engineer. He wouldn't take on a mission he wasn't prepared for. Besides, capturing the first image of a black hole has been his dream since he was a kid, just like you." A glimmer of hope flickered in Leon's eyes. Just then, a door at the end of the corridor hissed open, and a tall figure emerged. It was Frank Morris, his face etched with a mix of excitement and nervousness. His eyes scanned the hallway until they landed on Leon. "Leon," Frank boomed, a wide grin splitting his face. "There you are. I was starting to think I'd lost my little astronaut." Leon spun around, his bear forgotten for a moment. Relief washed over him as he launched himself into his father's arms. "Dad, I thought you went into space." Frank chuckled, ruffling Leon's hair. "Not quite, buddy. There were some last-minute adjustments to the mission plan. But hey, how about we grab some ice cream after work and celebrate?" "My treat." Leon pulled back, a frown etching his forehead. "But the black hole, Dad, isn't that dangerous?" Frank glanced at Maya, a silent exchange passing between them. He then knelt before Leon, his expression turning serious. "There are always risks involved in space exploration, champ. But your dad's one of the best in the business. Besides, I wouldn't do anything that would put myself in danger of not being there for you." Frank squeezed Leon's shoulder. "Maybe someday, when you're all grown up, you can follow in my footsteps and become an astronaut yourself. But for now," he winked, "let's focus on less dangerous adventures. Okay?" Maya cleared her throat, a playful smile tugging at her lips. "Easy there, hotshot. Don't you think exploring the universe is a bit much for a 10-year-old? Frank chuckled, a hint of pride in his eyes. "Maybe you're right, Maya. But hey, a man can dream, can't he? And who knows, maybe one day Leon will surpass even his old man. A pang of disappointment flickered in Leon's eyes. "All right, Dad," he mumbled, kicking a stray pebble on the floor. "But you still gotta be careful, okay?" Frank ruffled Leon's hair one last time. "Always, champ. Now listen, the launch is happening any minute now. I gotta get suited up." He stood up, his gaze flickering towards the spaceship in the distance, a gleaming behemoth bathed in pre-launch spotlights. "But Dad," the black hole Leon started again, his voice laced with worry. Frank knelt back down, a determined glint in his eyes. "Listen, son, capturing that image will be a giant leap for our agency. A world record, wouldn't you say?" Leon pondered for a moment, then nodded hesitantly. "Yeah, I guess so." "Exactly," Frank boomed, a smile erupting on his face. "That's why I need you to promise me something." Leon's brow furrowed. "What is it, Dad?" Frank's smile softened. "Promise me you'll really dig into your space studies when you grow up. Learn everything you can about the universe, about black holes and distant galaxies. Maybe even join the agency someday and become an astronaut yourself." Leon hesitated, his gaze darting between his father and the imposing spaceship. The image of a swirling black hole, a cosmic monster lurking in the darkness, flickered in his mind. "Promise me, Leon," Frank pressed gently, his voice filled with hope. Taking a deep breath, Leon straightened his shoulders. "I promise, Dad, I'll learn everything there is to know about space. And maybe, just maybe, I'll join you up there someday." Pride beamed in Frank's eyes. "That's my boy," he exclaimed, pulling Leon into a tight hug. "I love you, champ, more than words can say." With a final squeeze, Frank reluctantly let go, his gaze drawn back to the launchpad. "Duty calls," he said, his voice tinged with a hint of nervousness. "See you on the other side, kiddo." The roar of the engines vibrated through the ground as Frank approached the colossal rocket. A wave of nervous excitement washed over him, a familiar sensation that had fueled his passion for space exploration since childhood. He glanced back at Leon, who stood rooted to the spot, his expression a mix of worry and pride. Despite the danger, Frank felt a surge of purpose, a determination to capture that elusive image and contribute to humanity's understanding of the universe. As cheers erupted from the assembled crew, Frank gave Leon a final reassuring nod, before climbing the metal ladder and disappearing into the belly of the rocket. Leon watched, his small hand gripping his bear tighter, until the hatch sealed shut with a hiss, leaving only the deafening roar of the engines filling the air. A hand landed gently on Leon's shoulder. He turned to see David, one of his father's co-workers, a kind-faced man with a warm smile. "Hey, Leon," David said, "I was just looking for you. Your dad gave me something to give you." He pulled out a worn leather watch with a scratched face and a small, sealed envelope. He said, "It's for you, if you ever decide you want to work here someday." Leon's eyes widened. He carefully took the watch and the card, his heart heavy with a mix of emotions. "Thanks, David," he mumbled, clutching the watch to his chest. "So, Maya, who had been standing nearby, chimed in, "Is Frank really going out there to photograph a black hole?" David chuckled, a hint of concern in his eyes. "That's the plan. It's a risky mission, no doubt, but Frank's the best we've got for this job." Leon looked up at the towering rocket, a silent prayer forming on his lips. He knew the dangers, the stories of astronauts lost in the unforgiving vastness of space. A deafening roar shattered the silence as the rocket ignited, a pillar of fire erupting from its base. Leon squeezed his eyes shut, the ground trembling beneath his feet. When he opened them again, the colossal machine was already rising, leaving a trail of smoke and a growing plume of flame in its wake. 30 minutes ticked by in an agonizingly slow blur. Leon, his eyes glued to the sky, watched as the rocket dwindled into a tiny speck, a blazing point of light against the endless expanse of blue. Anxiety gnawed at him, but a glimmer of hope flickered within. His father was on his way. Inside the cramped rocket cabin, Frank, strapped securely into his seat, felt the G-forces pressing down on him. He watched through the viewport as the Earth rapidly shrunk, its familiar blue and green continents morphing into a swirling marble against the inky blackness of space. With a practiced ease, he shut down the engine, a wave of relief washing over him. Now, the journey would be smooth sailing, on autopilot until he reached his destination. He activated his communicator. Nova Base, this is Mission Specialist Morris. Everything nominal. Currently in a stable orbit, prepped for data collection. Leon's heart leaped in his chest as Maya's voice crackled through the speakers. Mission Specialist Morris, this is Nova Base. We copy. Congratulations. You've officially crossed the exosphere. Welcome to space, Frank. A wide grin spread across Leon's face. His dad in space. He couldn't help but let out a whoop of joy, a sound that echoed through the control room, met with cheers and applause from the gathered crew. Maya smiled, her eyes twinkling with pride. Looks like someone's got a very proud co-pilot down here, she said, her voice filled with warmth. A tense silence fell over the control room after Frank's confirmation of being in space. Leon, still basking in the afterglow of his father's achievement, fidgeted with his bear's worn button eye. Suddenly, a piercing alarm blared, jolting everyone back to attention. Red lights strobed across the consoles as a robotic voice boomed through the speakers. Anomaly detected. Dimensional fluctuations. Critical systems malfunctioning. Panic flared in Maya's eyes. Frank, come in. She yelled into the microphone, her voice tight with worry. Static. Nothing but static crackled back.
R1, I don't know what's going on. Destroy's coming. I am sorry. I am very much sorry. I might not survive this. Please tell Leon that I was not there for him during the time he needed. I am sorry.
Through the viewport, a chilling sight filled his vision. A jagged mass of rock, an asteroid hurtling towards him at breakneck speed. Oh no, Frank breathed, a wave of despair washing over him. He braced himself for impact. Just as the asteroid seemed about to obliterate the rocket, a blinding white light erupted from behind it. The light intensified, engulfing the asteroid and the rocket in a searing flash. A deafening explosion rocked the spacecraft, throwing Frank against the control panel. Silence. An eerie, unsettling silence descended on the control room. The red lights continued to blink, the alarm's robotic voice replaced by an unnerving quiet. Maya stared at the screen, her face pale. Frank, come in. Can anyone hear us? She called out, her voice trembling. No response. Just static. The image on the screen flickered, showing only a vast expanse of empty space. Leon, his face etched with terror, clutched his father's watch to his chest. Had the asteroid hit? Was his father? He couldn't bring himself to voice the dreadful question hanging in the air. A heavy silence blanketed the room, thick with uncertainty and fear. The fate of Frank Morris, lost amidst the stars, remained a chilling mystery. "6 years had zipped by like a rogue comet. Leon, no longer a scrawny teenager, stood at a towering 18. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the excitement and a touch of nervousness in his eyes. "Leon, you'll be late for your first day at the space agency," boomed his mom's voice from downstairs. Leon scrambled down the stairs, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. "Right, Mom, I almost forgot." He gave her a quick hug. "I'm gonna miss you so much." His mom squeezed him tight. "I'll miss you too, honey. But remember, you're living your dream. After you reach south of Poland, in Orion Access Space Command in Vermin City, make sure to contact me regularly." "Okay." "Yes, Mom," Leon promised, a lump forming in his throat. This was it. He was finally on his way. With one last hug, he stepped out into the bustling morning. The familiar sights and sounds of Vermin City thrummed with a new energy. This wasn't just his hometown anymore. It was the launching pad to his future amongst the stars. He hailed a taxi at the nearest stand. The grizzled driver, his face etched with the city's relentless pace, looked him up and down. "Where to, son?" "Hamelster Barnef, please," Leon replied, his voice firm with anticipation. The driver grunted in acknowledgement, slid the meter on, and with a cough and a sputter, the taxi lurched forward, carrying Leon towards his destiny at the Orion Access Space Command. The city blurred past, a kaleidoscope of memories and the promise of a future far beyond the horizon. The taxi driver, a seasoned navigator of Vermin City's chaotic streets, dropped Leon off at the imposing Hamelster Barnef. With a curt nod and a grumbled farewell, he pulled away, leaving Leon standing amidst the throngs of travelers. Glancing at his watch, Leon saw it was 11:30 a.m. Perfect timing. He had 30 minutes to board his southbound express train, a behemoth of steel and steam that would hurtle him towards his new life. With a determined stride, Leon weaved through the bustling crowds, his duffel bag bouncing on his shoulder. He found his platform and spotted the sleek, streamlined form of the train, a stark contrast to the weathered brick buildings of the station. Following the stream of passengers, Leon boarded the train and located his designated car sleeper compartment. A quick glance at his ticket confirmed his suspicions he had snagged an upper berth. He hoisted his bag onto the rack above and scanned the compartment. The lower bunk was empty, a small comfort in the otherwise unfamiliar surroundings. "Yes, I have the place to myself," Leon murmured, a hint of surprise in his voice. He stowed his shoes under the seat and sank down onto the plush upholstery, a wave of relief washing over him. 30 minutes of peace before the journey truly began. He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment, the rhythmic clatter of the train, slowly lulling him into a pre-departure doze. Leon's train reverie was shattered by the soft click of the compartment door sliding open. He peeked over the edge of his bunk, expecting a porter or another passenger. Instead, his breath hitched. Standing in the doorway was a girl, seemingly his age, with hair the color of spun sunshine and eyes that twinkled like distant stars. A knapsack hung casually over one shoulder, and a smile played on her lips, radiating warmth and confidence. For a moment, Leon was frozen. Her beauty was a sudden sunbeam piercing the dimness of the compartment, leaving him speechless. A blush crept up his neck, staining his cheeks a furious crimson. He fumbled for words, his tongue suddenly thick and clumsy. "Hi, I'm Ruby," the girl chirped, her voice like wind chimes on a summer breeze. "And you must be." Leon felt his cheeks burn even hotter. He stammered, I am Leon. Nice to meet you." Ruby's chuckle filled the compartment, a sound as light and musical as birdsong. "Oh, looks like I made you blush," she teased, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Leon mumbled a sheepish confirmation, still unable to tear his gaze away from her. Her presence filled the previously empty space, not just physically, but with a vibrant energy that both excited and intimidated him. Ruby, seemingly oblivious to his flustered state, hoisted her knapsack onto the rack opposite his bunk, and plopped down onto the lower berth with a sigh. "There are 2 empty berths still," she mentioned casually, her gaze flitting between him and the vacant bunks. Ruby's question snapped Leon out of his daze. So, Leon, where are you headed, friend? She asked, tilting her head with genuine curiosity. His cheeks still burned a delightful shade of pink. He stammered, fighting to regain his composure. I'm going to the Orion Access Space Command, south of Poland. It's my first day there. Ruby's eyes widened in surprise. Wow, really? Me too, she exclaimed, a wide grin splitting her face. That's incredible. Small world, huh? Leon's blush deepened further. The odds of them sharing the same destination, let alone the same train compartment, seemed astronomical. Wow, he breathed, a smile mirroring hers. So, wanna be partners then? He blurted out, the sudden boldness surprising even himself. Ruby's smile widened even further. Partners? Sure. Why not? She chuckled. At least I won't be bored on this long journey. Relief and a jolt of excitement washed over Leon. He hadn't meant to be so forward, but the idea of having a friendly face, especially one as beautiful as Ruby's, by his side, filled him with a newfound confidence. Oh, that makes me happy, Leon stammered, finally managing a genuine smile. Yay, he added sheepishly, the childish outburst escaping his lips before he could stop it. Ruby's laughter filled the compartment once more, a warm and inviting sound that chased away any remaining nervousness Leon harbored. He felt a thrill course through him, the start of a journey not just towards his dream, but perhaps towards an unexpected friendship, or maybe even something more. The train lurched forward, its whistle announcing their departure, and with it, the beginning of an adventure that promised to be far more exciting than Leon ever could have imagined. The rhythmic clickety-clack of the train lulled them into a comfortable silence. Ruby, fiddling with a loose thread on her sleeve, finally broke it. So, Leon, she began hesitantly, what motivated you to join the space agency? It's just a personal question, you know. It's okay if you don't want to say. Leon, basking in the newfound ease of their conversation, shook his head. No, please, you can ask me anything. He took a deep breath, suddenly feeling a pang of bittersweet nostalgia. I want to be like my dad. Ruby's brow furrowed. So, your dad works at the agency too? Leon's smile faltered slightly. He used to, he corrected, a hint of sadness tinging his voice. His name was Frank Morris. He was a great astronaut, you know, one of the best. A jolt of surprise shot through Ruby, momentarily stealing the breath from her lungs. Frank Morris, she echoed, her voice barely a whisper. Leon, oblivious to the sudden shift in her demeanor, nodded eagerly. Yeah. He was on the team that first landed a crewed mission on Mars. A true pioneer. The weight of the name hung heavy in the air. Ruby's smile vanished, replaced by a mask of conflicted emotions. Leon, noticing her sudden change in expression, leaned forward with concern. What's wrong? Did you know my dad? Ruby's silence stretched on, thick with unspoken revelation. Finally, she broke eye contact with the window and looked at Leon, her voice barely above a whisper. Wait, Frank Morris. You said your dad was Frank Morris. A flicker of hope ignited in Leon's eyes. Yeah, he was amazing, wasn't he? Ruby nodded slowly, a small, sad smile gracing her lips. He was a legend. My dad always talked about him, about his bravery and his dedication. She paused, her gaze dropping once more. What happened to your dad, Leon? I heard from my dad that he died. Leon flinched, a wave of grief washing over him. The memory was still fresh, a gaping wound in his heart. Ah, yes, he choked out, his voice thick with emotion. It happened 6 years ago, when I was just 12. I came to the research lab to see him off. He was going on a mission to photograph a black hole. Ruby listened intently, her eyes wide with horror. But something happened, didn't it? Leon took a shaky breath. An asteroid, he said, his voice barely a whisper. It hit his rocket. They lost communication, and he trailed off, unable to finish the sentence, the raw pain of the memory threatening to engulf him. Ruby reached out hesitantly, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "Oh no, Leon," she murmured, her voice filled with genuine sympathy. "I am so very sorry for that." Leon managed a weak smile, squeezing her hand back. "It's okay," he said, more for himself than for her. "Accidents don't come with warnings, you know." Despite the forced bravado, his voice trembled slightly. The weight of revelation continued to press down on them. Leon, needing to break the heavy silence, decided to reciprocate Ruby's earlier question. "So, what about your dad, Ruby? What's his name?" Ruby hesitated for a moment, then met his gaze with a newfound openness. "His name is David Alcroze," she said softly. Leon's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, David. Wait, does he work at the Orion Access Space Command, the one we're going to?" A flicker of a smile touched Ruby's lips. "Yes, he does," she confirmed. "No way," Leon exclaimed, excitement replacing the earlier somber mood. "I know him. When I was 12, he was a co-worker with my dad." He launched into a recollection of a friendly, cheerful man who always had a joke or a kind word for him whenever he visited his dad at the agency. Ruby's smile broadened. "Really? Wow, this is incredible." "It's like she trailed off, searching for the right word. Leon finished her thought with a grin. "Like siblings." "Yeah, totally." The realization struck him with a jolt of unexpected joy. They weren't just fellow passengers on a train. They were children of astronauts bound together by a shared past and a shared dream. "Exactly," Ruby chimed in, her voice brimming with newfound enthusiasm. "That's why we're partners, right? Partners on this crazy journey. Not just to the Orion Access Space Command, but maybe even beyond." A spark of determination ignited in Leon's eyes. He looked at Ruby, no longer just a beautiful stranger, but a kindred spirit, a fellow space enthusiast with a story as captivating as his own. "Partners," he echoed, a sense of adventure and camaraderie filling his chest. "To the stars and beyond." Leon's gaze drifted towards the window, the passing landscape blurring into a kaleidoscope of colors. A determined glint sparked in his eyes as he spoke. "I need to fulfill my dad's dream, Ruby, to take a picture of a black hole." Ruby's smile faltered. Her hand tightened on his arm, a flicker of fear replacing the newfound joy. "What? Leon, are you crazy? Your dad tried to do the same thing, and you saw what happened to him." Leon understood her concern. The memory of losing his father was still a fresh wound, but alongside the pain, there was an ember of his father's passion that burned brightly within him. "I know," he said softly, turning to face her. "But my dad, he had this incredible dream, to capture a real image of a black hole, something no one had ever done before. He believed it would unlock so many secrets about the universe." He paused, his voice thickening with emotion. "And I can't let his dream die in vain. As his son, I feel a responsibility to carry it on, to use what he learned to be more careful, more prepared, but to try, because maybe, just maybe, I can succeed where he couldn't." Ruby stared at him, her heart torn between fear and admiration. She saw the unwavering determination in his eyes, a reflection of the same spirit that had driven her father and countless other astronauts to reach for the unknown. "Leon," she said finally, her voice filled with a newfound resolve, "I understand why you want to do this. It's a noble goal, honoring your father's legacy. But you have to promise me one thing. You'll be careful. You'll take every precaution. You won't be reckless." A slow smile spread across Leon's face. "I promise, Ruby. I'll learn everything I can, train harder than anyone. Your dad will be there too, at the Space Command, right?" Maybe he can guide me, share his experiences with my dad. A flicker of hope ignited in Ruby's eyes. Yes, he'll be there, and maybe, just maybe, together we can help you achieve your dream. Your father's dream. Their moment of shared resolve was shattered by a most unwelcome intrusion. The compartment door slid open with a groan, and a figure lumbered in, casting a grotesque shadow across the room. It was a man impossibly wide with a belly that protruded like a beached whale. His unwashed clothes clung to him, and a pungent odor that could only be described as a weak old gym sock filled the air. Ruby wrinkled her nose, instinctively covering her face with her hand. The man, oblivious to the effect he was having, lumbered closer to their berth, stopping with a grunt right in front of them. He scratched his belly absently, the sound of his fingernails scraping against his stretched skin adding to the general unpleasantness. Ruby, overwhelmed by the stench and the man's audacity, let out a disgusted squeak and instinctively threw her arms around Leon, burying her face in his shoulder. A wave of heat flooded Leon's cheeks as he felt her soft form press against him. He was flustered, yet strangely protective. The man, seemingly unfazed by the reaction he caused, continued his scratching and grunted in what might have been a greeting before lumbering on towards another compartment. Relief washed over Leon as the door slid shut with a heavy thud, momentarily trapping them in their bubble of shared experience. Ruby, realizing her outburst, quickly extricated herself from Leon's embrace. "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry," she exclaimed, a blush creeping up her neck. I mean you. This journey is already off to a bad start." Leon, still flustered but secretly enjoying the brief contact, stammered, "It's okay, really. I kind of enjoyed it." The blush on his cheeks deepened as the realization of his words hit him. Ruby burst out laughing, the sound like wind chimes chasing away the awkwardness. "Oh, Leon, you really are bad at this, aren't you?" she teased, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Leon chuckled sheepishly, the encounter quickly fading into a memory overshadowed by the sense of connection he felt with Ruby. As the train continued its journey, they settled back into their conversation, the unexpected interruption serving as a reminder of the strange and wonderful things that could happen on the path to achieving one's dreams. Night draped itself over the world outside, painting the passing landscape in shades of inky black, punctuated by the occasional twinkling light of a distant town. Inside the compartment, the rhythmic clatter of the train had softened to a lullaby, its steady thrum a comforting counterpoint to the silence within. Leon, nestled in his upper bunk, gazed down at Ruby curled up on the lower berth. The soft glow of the reading lamp cast a warm light on her face, highlighting the peaceful serenity of her sleep. A small smile played on his lips. He had never expected to find a kindred spirit, let alone a beautiful one, on this train journey. "Good night, Ruby," he whispered softly, his voice barely audible over the train's gentle hum. From below, a muffled response drifted up. "Good night, Leon." With a content sigh, Leon turned off his reading lamp, plunging the compartment into a comforting darkness. He closed his eyes, the rhythmic rocking of the train, and the soft sounds of Ruby's breathing, lulling him into a peaceful slumber. The train, a steel serpent carving its way through the night, carried them both towards an uncertain future. A future brimming with the promise of new beginnings, shared dreams, and perhaps even something more. A sliver of golden sunlight peeked through the gap in the curtains, rousing Leon from his sleep. He stretched luxuriously, the events of yesterday playing like a vivid dream in his mind. The memory of Ruby's warmth against him in the face of the obnoxious stranger brought a smile to his face. He sat up, blinking away the remnants of sleep. The rhythmic clickety-clack of the train had shifted into a higher gear, a telltale sign of increased speed. Outside, the world whizzed by in a blur of greens and browns, the countryside slowly giving way to the outskirts of a bustling city. A soft voice startled him. "Good morning, sleepyhead." Ruby sat on her lower bunk, a playful glint in her eyes. Her hair was a tousled mess, and she wore a sleepy smile that sent a jolt straight to his heart. "Good morning," Leon stammered, feeling a familiar blush creep up his cheeks. "Did you sleep well?" "Like a log," Ruby chuckled. "The rocking of the train actually puts me to sleep quite easily." Leon glanced at his watch. "Wow, it's already late morning," he exclaimed, surprised by the passage of time. "How much longer until we reach the station?" Ruby checked her phone. "Not much longer," she announced. "The app says we should be arriving at the station in about 10 minutes. Excitement bubbled in Leon's chest. He stood up, his gaze flitting between the speeding scenery and Ruby's expectant face. 10 minutes, he murmured, a nervous energy coursing through him. 10 minutes until a new chapter begins. The train shrieked to a halt, jolting Leon and Ruby out of their pre-arrival reverie. A wave of anticipation washed over them as the automated announcement declared their arrival at the station, the gateway to their dreams. Together, they gathered their belongings, their movements a well-rehearsed dance honed during their unexpected yet comfortable train journey. Exiting the compartment, they were swept into the bustling throng of disembarking passengers. The station was a chaotic symphony of activity. Loudspeakers blared announcements, while the hurried footsteps of travelers echoed off the high ceilings. Undeterred, Leon and Ruby navigated the flow, their shared purpose a silent compass guiding them. Reaching the taxi rank, they flagged down a waiting cab. As they settled into the back seat, a sense of accomplishment washed over Leon. He glanced at Ruby, a grin spreading across his face. "We made it," he said, the simple sentence holding a multitude of emotions. Ruby returned his smile, her eyes shining with excitement. "We did," she agreed. "The Orion Access Space Command awaits." The taxi sped through the bustling city, weaving through traffic with practiced ease. Leon watched the cityscape blur by, a mix of modern skyscrapers and historical buildings. He could almost taste the promise of the future hanging in the air. Finally, the taxi driver announced their arrival. Leon peered out the window, his breath catching in his throat. There, nestled amidst sprawling greenery, stood the Orion Access Space Command, a majestic complex of gleaming buildings and launch pads that seemed to pierce the sky. With a shared nod, Leon and Ruby paid the fare and stepped out of the cab. Taking a deep breath of the crisp morning air, they stood at the threshold of their future, their journey together only just beginning. The vastness of the Orion Access Space Command stretched before them, a canvas waiting for them to paint their dreams upon. Hand in hand, they walked towards the imposing gates, ready to embark on the next chapter of their adventure, a chapter filled with the promise of discovery, camaraderie, and the boundless wonder of the cosmos.
The Orion Axis Space Command was a behemoth of activity. Its sprawling campus bustled with scientists, engineers, and workers, all moving with purpose. The hum of conversation and the clatter of tools created a symphony of industriousness, a testament to humanity's relentless curiosity about the cosmos. The main atrium, a grand glass structure that offered a breathtaking view of the launch pads outside, was a hub of constant motion. Leon was sitting in the cafeteria, absent-mindedly stirring his coffee as he flipped through the day's schedule on his tablet. The last 2 weeks had been a whirlwind of activity, with simulations, lectures, and physical training keeping him and Ruby on their toes. Ruby appeared from behind, holding a tray stacked precariously with food. "Leon, are you even eating? You're going to need energy for today's drills," she teased, setting her tray down and plopping into the seat opposite him. Her energy was infectious, a stark contrast to Leon's quiet determination. Leon gave her a small smile. "Just thinking about everything. It's overwhelming." Before Ruby could respond, a booming voice echoed through the atrium. "Ruby! Leon?" They turned to see Dr. Rajesh Varma, a jovial senior engineer who had taken a liking to them since their arrival. He strode over, balancing a cup of tea and a datapad, his ever-present smile brightening his face. "Still settling in, are we? The first few weeks are the hardest, trust me," he said, pulling up a chair uninvited. "But after that, the madness becomes second nature." Ruby laughed. "Madness is one way to describe it. I think I nearly fainted during yesterday's zero-gravity training." Leon grinned at her dramatic flair. "You weren't that bad. Just don't let Evans hear you say that." "Speaking of Evans," Varma interjected, glancing at his datapad, "he's called for a meeting. Something about an urgent update, Tosak. The man's a genius, but he sure knows how to make people nervous." 5 minutes later, Professor Evans' research room. The research room was a marvel of advanced technology. Holographic displays hovered in mid-air, showing complex simulations of celestial bodies and data streams. A massive interactive star map dominated one wall, pulsating softly with the light of countless stars. The room was filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Scientists huddled in groups, whispering to one another, while engineers examined blueprints of spacecraft components. At the center of the room stood Professor Evans, his stern yet fatherly demeanor commanding attention. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice cutting through the low murmur of conversation. "As you know, the mission to capture a black hole's event horizon has been in development for decades. We are closer than ever, but with great ambition comes great risk." The crowd exchanged uneasy glances. "Leon Morris," Evans called out, motioning for him to step forward. Leon felt a wave of anxiety as the room's attention shifted to him. He stepped forward, his back straight, trying to project confidence despite the fluttering in his chest. Evans placed a hand on his shoulder. "Are you certain you're ready for this, Leon? This mission is no ordinary venture. It's the edge of human understanding and survival." Leon swallowed hard, meeting Evans' intense gaze. "For my father's dream, I'm ready. He dedicated his life to this mission. If he couldn't finish it, then I will." A murmur spread through the room. Some scientists nodded in approval, while others whispered among themselves, skepticism evident in their expressions. Dr. Celeste Yuen, a senior astrophysicist, stepped forward. Her sharp, calculating eyes scanned Leon. "Do you truly understand the risks, young man? Capturing a black hole isn't just dangerous, it's uncharted territory. The gravitational forces alone could." "I understand," Leon interrupted, his voice steady. "But if we let fear stop us, we'll never achieve anything great. My father believed in this mission, and I do too." Ruby, standing at the back, felt a swell of pride. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "Leon's not alone. I'll be by his side. We've trained for this, and we'll succeed." Evans raised a hand, silencing the room. "It's not a decision we take lightly. The risks are monumental, yes, but so are the potential rewards. If Leon and Ruby are committed, then we owe them our full support." Dr. Varma chimed in with a grin. "You've got the spirit, kid. Just don't let the black hole swallow you up, eh?" Laughter rippled through the room, easing some of the tension. Evans nodded, his expression softening. Very well. We move forward with preparations. Everyone, return to your tasks. Leon, Ruby, stay behind. We have much to discuss. As the room emptied, Leon and Ruby stood before Evans, their determination unwavering. The professor smiled faintly. You remind me of your father, Leon. He would be proud. Leon's chest tightened at the mention of his father, but he nodded. Thank you, Professor. I won't let him or this mission down. The research lab B16 was a marvel of futuristic design. Sleek metallic walls shimmered under the soft glow of ambient lighting, and the faint hum of equipment filled the air. Leon and Ruby stood in the center, exchanging curious glances as Professor Evans fiddled with his tablet. Evans looked up, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. Leon, Ruby, since this mission will be particularly challenging, it's only logical to provide you with a partner. Someone who will complement your strengths. Ruby tilted her head, puzzled. A partner? But we've been working fine as a duo. Leon, on the other hand, grinned. I love teamwork. Professor? Who is it? Someone from astrophysics? Maybe an experienced pilot? Oh, wait, is it? Evans raised a hand to cut him off, chuckling. Patience, Leon. I see you're eager, but good things come to those who wait. Ruby folded her arms. Just tell us already, Professor. The suspense is killing me. Evans smirked and tapped a button on his phone. All right, I'll summon him now. Holding the phone to his ear, he spoke. Send him to Lab B16 immediately. Leon and Ruby exchanged excited glances. Their imaginations ran wild with possibilities. A seasoned astronaut, a prodigy scientist, or maybe even someone famous in the field. The door to the lab slid open with a smooth whoosh, and they both turned expectantly. What they saw, however, left them dumbfounded. Standing in the doorway was a short, rotund boy with a face like a ripe tomato, his glasses fogged from what was presumably a sprint. His shirt clung to his ample frame, and a glob of mustard decorated his collar. He sneezed loudly into his hand and wiped the mucus on his pants before stepping into the room. Hi, everyone, he said, his voice a nasally drawl. Ruby's jaw dropped. Oh no, Leon, this is the same boy we saw on the train! Leon squinted, the memory flooding back. You're right. I remember now. He turned to Evans, his tone incredulous. Professor, I know your sense of humor is top tier, but this has to be some kind of elaborate prank, right? Evans, unfazed, smiled warmly. No joke, Leon. Meet your partner, Bubba Lardbottom. Leon blinked. Bubba what? Before Evans could reply, Bubba extended his mucus-smeared hand toward Leon. Bubba Lardbottom, at your service. You can call me Bubba. Leon recoiled instinctively, raising his hands. Great to meet you. From a distance. Ruby's face contorted in horror as she clutched Leon's arm. Ew, this is disgusting. Professor, are you serious? He's going to be our partner? He sneezes on his hand. What if he does that in zero gravity? Bubba chuckled, his belly jiggling. Don't worry, I'll bring tissues. I've got lots of them. Also, I've never puked in a zero-G test. Well, not more than once. Leon buried his face in his hands. Professor, please tell me this is some kind of team-building exercise, like face your worst fears or something? Evans crossed his arms, his expression resolute. I am completely serious. Bubba may not look like much, but he's one of the brightest minds we have. He graduated top of his class in quantum mechanics at 16 and has been instrumental in designing the mission's gravitational analytics software. Ruby glanced at Leon, her face pale. Gravitational analytics or not, this is a real mission, Professor, not a social experiment, Leon nodded. Exactly. This isn't some group project where everyone gets a participation trophy. We're going to space. Space! With a black hole. This feels like destiny, Bubba interrupted, grinning. I knew you'd see it that way. Don't worry, I'll carry my weight, which, you know, is a lot. He burst into laughter, snorting loudly at his own joke. Ruby gagged. Oh my gosh, Leon, what are we gonna do? Leon gestured for her to calm down, though his expression screamed panic. Let's just trust the professor for now. Evans clapped his hands, clearly satisfied. Excellent, that's the spirit. Now the three of you will form the core team for Operation Black Hole Alpha G16. The mission briefing starts tomorrow at 900 hours. Until then, I suggest you all get some rest. As the trio exited the lab, Ruby whispered fiercely to Leon. Rest? How can I rest knowing we're going to space with him? I feel like I need a full-body disinfectant spray. Leon sighed. Look, we'll figure it out. Maybe Bubba will surprise us. He's got the degrees, right? Bubba, walking ahead of them, turned and grinned. Don't worry, guys. We're going to be the best space crew ever. You'll see. Oh, by the way, anyone got snacks? I skipped lunch. Ruby groaned audibly. This is going to be a nightmare. Leon gave her a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. It's okay. We're professionals. We can handle anything, even Bubba. With that, they parted ways, each lost in their thoughts about the unpredictable days to come. The cafeteria of the Orion Axis Space Command was a large, open space, buzzing with the chatter of fellow researchers and astronauts as they ate and discussed their projects. Leon sat at one of the tables, staring into his bowl of nutrient paste, his mind a million miles away. He was still processing the absurdity of what had happened earlier with Bubba. He poked at his food, the bland taste doing little to distract him from his growing unease about the mission ahead. Just as he sighed and took another half-hearted spoonful, a familiar voice broke him from his thoughts. Hey, Leon! Got your food here! Ruby's cheerful voice brought a much-needed distraction. She slid into the seat across from him, setting down 2 trays of food, one of which was piled high with an assortment of vegetables, potatoes, and some mystery meat. Leon took his tray with a grateful smile. Thanks, Ruby. I hope you enjoy yours as well. Ruby smiled back, sitting down and beginning to nibble on her meal. After a minute of silence, she looked at Leon, her expression suddenly turning thoughtful. Leon, do you think the professor did the right thing? Ruby asked, cautiously. I mean, putting us with him? Bubba? Leon sat back in his chair, taking a moment to think. Science is all about risk, Ruby, he said slowly. And right now, the professor knows what's best for us. We've got to trust him. Ruby frowned slightly, picking at her food with a fork. I don't know, Leon. Do you honestly think he can handle this mission? Because, well, he kinda sucks. Leon chuckled at Ruby's bluntness, shaking his head. We don't know yet, do we? He said. But hey, don't worry. I'll do my best to make sure we can handle it. He paused, a mischievous grin forming on his face. What was his name again? Bladder? Blubber? Ruby burst into laughter, nearly choking on her bite of food. What? Bladder? Oh my God! You really don't know his name, do you? Leon looked sheepish. I'm sure it'll come to me. Maybe it's Bubba? His voice trailed off as if he was trying to convince himself. Ruby's laughter only grew louder. Bubba? Really? You forgot his name? I can't even. Yeah, I know. I'm terrible with names, Leon muttered, though he couldn't help but laugh along with Ruby. Anyway, Bubba? Whatever. We'll just have to make the best of it, right? Ruby wiped away a tear of laughter, still grinning. You'd better, or else we're going to have a mucus disaster in space. Leon chuckled again, holding up a hand. Okay, stop. You've said enough. Let's not jinx it. Ruby raised an eyebrow playfully. You're right. I shouldn't say anything about Bubba, but seriously, Leon, can you imagine what it's going to be like? Space with him? She gestured vaguely toward the cafeteria as if the very idea was too much to bear. Yeah, I can imagine, Leon said with a grin. Just keep a safe distance, a very safe distance. Just then, the familiar sound of heavy footsteps echoed across the cafeteria floor. Leon and Ruby looked up in unison to see Bubba waddling over, his face already gleaming with excitement. He plopped down next to Ruby with an audible grunt. All right, guys, time for some food, Bubba said, grinning ear to ear as he dug into his tray, spilling mashed potatoes onto the table with a resounding thud. As he did, he let out a loud, echoing fart that seemed to reverberate off the cafeteria walls. Ruby's face contorted in disgust, her hand instinctively covering her nose. Oh my God, that's it. I can't sit with him, she muttered, standing up quickly. See you later, Leon. She hurried off, leaving Leon to deal with the unavoidable aftermath. Bubba looked at Leon, his face slightly puzzled. What's her problem? I didn't even know I had that effect on people. He shrugged, as if it was no big deal. Leon, struggling to keep a straight face, held his nose and leaned in. Bubba, maybe you should. Drink some water. You know, hydrate. That usually helps with whatever just happened. Bubba nodded, completely unfazed. Right. Hydration. Gotcha. Hey, want to snack on some crisps? He held up a large bag of chips, offering them with a grin that was almost too wide. No, thanks. I'm good. Leon said quickly, trying not to gag as Bubba crunched into the chips noisily, his mouth full. So, your name is Leon, right? Bubba asked between bites, his voice muffled by the food in his mouth. Yeah, Leon replied, trying to keep the conversation going despite the overwhelming discomfort he was feeling. That's me. Bubba wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and asked eagerly, So, are you excited for tomorrow? The space mission? Yeah, pretty much, Leon said, forcing a smile. Just ready to get it over with, you know? Bubba nodded enthusiastically, his voice high-pitched and cheerful. Yeah, mate, we're gonna be together the whole time. No worries, I'll make sure we're all good. Leon tried to finish his meal as quickly as possible, while Bubba continued to eat loudly, spilling food everywhere. After what felt like an eternity, Leon pushed his tray aside. All right, well, see you tomorrow, Bubba, Leon said, standing up quickly, eager to escape the situation. Bubba gave a thumbs up, his mouth full. Yeah, mate, see ya! We're gonna be one awesome team. You'll see. Leon gulped and turned, heading toward the exit of the cafeteria with a deep sigh. Yeah, pretty much, he muttered under his breath, his mind already running through every possible disaster scenario involving Bubba in space. Determined to get his mind off things, Leon decided to head to his room to read some space books and try to relax before the big day ahead. He hoped that maybe, just maybe, he could forget about the entire Bubba situation for a few hours. The room was quiet, save for the soft rustling of pages as Leon sat cross-legged on his bed, reading through a thick book about black holes. The evening light filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows across the room. Leon was deeply engrossed, his mind trying to wrap itself around the complex theories when suddenly buzz! The doorbell rang, jolting him from his thoughts. He got up, stretching a little, and opened the door. Standing there was Ruby, her face relaxed, though she looked a little awkward. Hey, bro, she said, a sheepish smile on her face. Can I come in? Anytime, Leon replied, stepping aside to let her in. She walked past him, glancing around the room before sitting down on his bed. Sorry for leaving you alone back there in the cafeteria, Ruby said, pulling her legs up beneath her. I just couldn't handle the smell. Leon waved it off. No need to apologize. You did good. If you had stayed, the smell would have, well, he trailed off, making a gagging motion. Okay, no need to go into that, Ruby said quickly, crinkling her nose in memory. Anyway, I found something for you. Leon raised an eyebrow, intrigued. He moved over to sit next to her. Ruby handed him a different book from the pile he had been reading, this one titled, The Mysteries of Black Holes, What We Still Don't Know. Here, Leon, Ruby said, her voice suddenly serious. This might help you understand the mission better. It's got everything you need to know about black holes. Everything that's been discovered and some stuff that hasn't been proven yet. As they both started reading through the book, the quiet of the room was interrupted by a loud slide of the door opening. Ruby jumped in surprise, and Leon immediately stiffened, wondering who was intruding. A suited astronaut strode into the room, compact, the sound of heavy boots echoing on the floor. He was fully suited up, helmet on, looking incredibly official. Ruby's eyes widened, and she instinctively grabbed Leon's arm, clutching it tightly in shock. Leon, equally stunned, blinked. Who are you? He asked, his voice laced with confusion. The astronaut shifted uncomfortably. Oh, this suit is so uncomfortable, the figure muttered under the helmet. With a dramatic flair, the astronaut removed the helmet with a whoosh, revealing none other than Bubba. Ruby's jaw dropped. Wait, you? Leon's brain short-circuited for a moment. What the hell? He stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief. Bubba looked around, grinning like he just made a killer joke. Oh, wow, you two here together this evening? Looks like something is going on between you two. Ah, he said, making exaggerated ah sounds, as if he were witnessing some secret romance. Ruby, now utterly mortified, shot up from the bed, her face flushed with anger. What is your problem? She snapped, hands on her hips. We're best friends, and you don't have the right to just barge in without permission. Bubba just chuckled, laughing at his own joke. I'm just messing with you guys. No need to get all cringy. Ruby groaned loudly, clearly done with the entire situation. Oh gosh, Leon, you better handle this tomorrow. I'm going to my room. Bye. She pushed Bubba lightly with both hands, as though pushing away a bad smell, and stormed out of the room. Leon sighed, rubbing his temples. Normally, yo dude, what's up again? He couldn't hide his discomfort anymore, but he decided to play it cool. This suit is so uncomfy. He gestured toward Bubba's suit with a deadpan expression. Bubba, unbothered, scratched his head. Oh, that's why it doesn't fit me. I figured something was wrong. Leon resisted the urge to roll his eyes. Don't worry. Tomorrow, Professor Evans will give us the proper suit. Trust me, it'll fit better. Bubba nodded sagely. Right. Hey, sorry for disturbing you, man. Leon, despite his discomfort, offered a polite smile. It's okay, mate. No need to apologize. You're so kind, Bubba said, looking genuinely appreciative. Leon almost laughed, but managed to keep it together. Thanks, mate. Bubba scratched his chin. Oh, one more thing, Leon. Can you help me find my room? Leon blinked. Your room? It's down the second hallway, Bubba. Your name's on the door. Bubba's eyes lit up. Ah, got it. Thanks, mate. Good night. With that, Bubba waddled toward the door, giving Leon a thumbs up. As Bubba left, Leon let out a huge sigh of relief, slumping back on his bed. Well, that was a disaster, he muttered to himself, but he was too exhausted to dwell on it. Meanwhile, outside in the hallway, Bubba was strolling toward his room, humming contentedly to himself. But suddenly, his stomach gave a mighty lurch. Uh-oh, Bubba muttered, looking down at his stomach as if it had betrayed him. His face twisted in panic. No, not now! Without warning, he let out a loud, forceful vomit, splattering all over the floor. Unfortunately, just as this occurred, a coworker came around the corner, and Bubba's projectile vomit splashed directly onto the unsuspecting man's chest. The coworker froze, his face turning an alarming shade of red. You son of a... he began, his voice filled with fury. What the hell did you do? Bubba's eyes went wide with embarrassment. Ah! I'm so sorry! He stammered, and without another word, he turned and bolted down the hall, leaving the poor coworker standing there, drenched and livid. As Bubba ran to his room, the sound of angry shouting faded into the distance. He didn't even stop to check if his suit was still on right. All that mattered now was getting away from the scene of his latest disaster. The morning sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden glow over the Orion Axis Space Command, where hundreds of scientists and engineers were gathered near the massive space rocket ready for launch. The ground was alive with activity, a bustling symphony of engineers in jumpsuits, technicians running final diagnostics, and scientists making last-minute preparations. Among the crowd stood Leon, Ruby, and Bubba, the trio's eyes wide as they observed the monumental vehicle before them. The spacecraft, sleek and powerful, seemed almost alive, as if it were ready to cut through the very fabric of space itself. The ground beneath them hummed with the intensity of the operation. Professor Evans, wearing his usual calm and authoritative demeanor, walked up to Leon and Ruby, giving them both a firm handshake. Good morning, Leon. Ruby? He greeted them, his voice steady and reassuring. Today is the day. Are you both ready for this? I think so, Professor, Leon said, his voice filled with determination, though his heart was racing. Ruby nodded with a confident smile, though her eyes betrayed a hint of nervousness. We're ready, Professor, she said, trying to hide her unease. That's the spirit, Evans said with a small grin. Team G16, the future is in your hands. Just remember, work as a team, stay focused, and above all, be careful. This mission is a huge risk, but I trust you will rise to the occasion. The other scientists cheered, clapping their hands in approval. Ruby and Leon exchanged glances, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. Standing a little ways off, Bubba bounced from foot to foot in his usual over-enthusiastic manner, eagerly looking at the rocket. I'm so excited! Can't wait to get up there! He announced loudly, his voice carrying across the field. Leon winced at the sound of Bubba's booming voice, but managed to force a smile. Yeah, pretty much, he muttered, not fully convinced by Bubba's enthusiasm. Professor Evans raised his hand to call for attention as he stepped forward, ready to give his final speech before the mission began. The crowd of scientists and engineers fell silent. All right, everyone, Evans began, his voice strong and steady. Today, we take one giant leap forward in our understanding of the universe. Our mission, Operation Black Hole Alpha G16, is unprecedented. It will be the first time we capture an actual black hole on camera, but it will also be the most dangerous thing any of us have attempted. So to Team G16, remember your training, trust in each other, and above all, never lose sight of the fact that you're not just exploring space. You're fulfilling a dream that has been years in the making. Now, let's make history. A round of applause erupted from the crowd, and Leon felt a surge of energy. This was it, his moment to step into his father's shoes, to finish what his father had started all those years ago. As Evans finished his speech, Leon couldn't help but look at the rocket. The towering spacecraft loomed in front of him, a symbol of everything he was about to face. His thoughts suddenly drifted back, memories flooding his mind. Images of his father, James Morris, the man who had spent his life searching for the impossible. The man who, in his final mission, had disappeared without a trace while trying to capture a black hole for the first time. Leon remembered the night he had learned of his father's disappearance. The look on his mother's face when she told him how she had tried to keep him from knowing the truth. His father had failed, but Leon was determined not to. He had to succeed for himself, for his father, for the dream that was left unfinished. "Hey, bro, are you okay?" Ruby's voice broke him out of his thoughts. He looked over at her and saw her concern etched on her face. She had seen the way his expression changed when he was lost in thought. "I'm fine," Leon replied, offering her a small, reassuring smile. "Just thinking about my dad." Ruby nodded, understanding. Without a word, she reached out and gently took his hand. "Hey, I'm with you, Leon. We'll face everything together. We're a team, remember that." Leon squeezed her hand, grateful for her support. "Yeah, you're right. We are a team." As they stood together, the noise of the crowd began to fade, and it was just the two of them for a moment, standing in the shadow of the enormous rocket. Leon felt a renewed sense of purpose, of strength, knowing that he had Ruby by his side. She had been there for him since the beginning, and no matter what came next, he wasn't alone. Just as they shared this quiet moment, Bubba approached them, his voice loud as ever. "Hey guys, ready to go?" he asked enthusiastically, a goofy grin plastered on his face. Ruby shot Leon a glance, an expression of dread crossing her features. Leon chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Looks like we're in for some trouble," he said quietly. Evans smiled at them, holding out their spacesuits. "All right, Team G16, these are your official spacesuits. You're ready for the mission. I'll be counting on all of you, especially you, Leon." "You're the leader. Don't let us down." Leon felt the weight of the moment, knowing this was more than just another space mission. This was history in the making. Bubba, still too excited for anyone's good, clapped Leon on the back. "We're going to do great, mate. Don't worry," he said with a grin that was just a little too wide. Leon nodded, a mixture of excitement and nervousness on his face. "Always, anytime," he replied, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts running through his head. They made their way toward the spacecraft, where the hatch to the interior was waiting. As the door slid open, Bubba's excitement reached new heights. His eyes grew wide as he stepped inside the spacecraft for the first time. He spun around, his arms raised in the air. "This is amazing," Bubba said loudly, his voice echoing through the narrow passage. He started dancing awkwardly, twisting and jumping in a strange little jig. Ruby stared at him, her face scrunching up in disgust. "Oh my God, he's like a giant toddler," she muttered under her breath. Leon chuckled and turned to Ruby. "Looks like he's never seen a spacecraft before," he said, trying not to laugh too loudly. "Bubba, maybe save the dance moves for later, all right?" Bubba stopped mid-spin and turned toward them. "What?" "I'm just excited," he said with a wide grin. "Look at all these buttons. It's like a giant video game." Ruby raised an eyebrow. Bubba, don't touch anything yet, okay? We need to get this mission started, not blow it up on day one." Leon nodded seriously. "Yeah, Bubba, leave the buttons alone for now. We'll have plenty of time for exploration once we're in space." Bubba looked around, clearly disappointed. Fine, but where's the game controller?" He waved his hands in front of him, clearly confused. Leon sighed. "Bubba, this is a real spacecraft, not a game." Bubba blinked, then shrugged. "Oh, right, I guess I got carried away. I'm just really excited, okay?" Just as the three of them were settling into their seats, Evans's voice crackled over the intercom. "Team G16, can you hear me?" "Yes, sir," Leon responded, giving his crew a reassuring glance. "All right, rocket takeoff is imminent," Evans said. "You've got all supplies and instructions. Keep communicating with us during the flight. Don't forget, safety first." "Understood, Professor," Ruby said, giving a thumbs up. The overhead speakers crackled again. "Attention, everyone. Prepare for takeoff. All crew members should be seated and securely fastened in their seats. Power may be cut temporarily during the launch sequence. Please remain seated at all times. We are counting down now." Leon turned to Ruby and Bubba. "Okay, guys, seatbelts on. No messing around." Bubba groaned as he plopped into a seat toward the far end of the cabin. Yeah, I'm buckled in. Don't worry, bro." Ruby sat down beside Leon, her face set with determination, but she still kept a loose grip on his arm, trying to stay calm amidst the chaos that surrounded them. "All right," Leon said, adjusting his seatbelt and getting ready at the main controls. "We're almost there." The countdown began over the intercom. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Leon took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. His gaze shifted briefly to Ruby, who gave him an encouraging smile. He could feel the weight of the mission bearing down on him, but he also knew that this was it, the moment his father had dreamed of, and he was going to make it happen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With a deafening roar, the rocket's engines ignited, sending a massive shockwave of sound and power throughout the cabin. The rocket shook violently, and the force of the launch slammed Leon and Ruby back into their seats. The interior rattled so much that it felt like the entire ship might come apart at the seams. Leon's stomach flipped as the rocket climbed higher into the sky, the speed and pressure intense. He looked at Ruby, whose face had turned pale, but she squeezed his hand tightly, a silent reassurance that they were in this together. Bubba, on the other hand, wasn't doing so well. His eyes widened in fear and his face turned green. "Ugh, I'm gonna..." Before he could finish, Bubba fainted, his body going limp in his seat. The power flickered, and then everything went black. The interior of the spacecraft was completely dark. The gentle hum of the engines, which had filled the cabin moments ago, was now eerily silent. Leon blinked a few times, trying to adjust his eyes to the darkness. He reached for Ruby's hand and squeezed it, not sure if she was still awake. "Ruby? Bubba?" Leon's voice echoed faintly in the stillness, but there was no response. In the dark, the mission had officially begun. But for Team G16, the real challenges were just starting. The spacecraft interior was dim, the gentle hum of systems coming back online filling the cabin. A soft flicker of light illuminated the cabin as the power returned, casting a surreal glow. Leon blinked his eyes open, the weightlessness making everything feel otherworldly. He adjusted his seatbelt, glancing around the cabin. His gaze shifted to the window pane, and for the first time, he saw the endless expanse of stars glittering against the black canvas of space. His jaw dropped in awe. "Ruby, Bubba!" Leon called out, excitement bubbling in his voice. "Wake up! We did it!" Ruby groaned softly, rubbing her eyes as she unfastened her seatbelt. She floated a little, startled by the sensation. What happened? Are we?" She turned to look out the window. Her eyes widened and her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my gosh, Leon, we're alive! We're actually in space!" Leon grinned, a sense of accomplishment radiating from him. "Yeah, we made it. Look at this view." Ruby leaned closer to the window, her hair floating around her face in the zero-gravity environment. "It's beautiful. I can't believe we're here." Leon turned on the communicator. Static crackled through the radio at first, but soon a familiar voice broke through. "Team G16, congratulations," came the voice of Professor Evans, steady and proud. "You've successfully made it into orbit." Cheers erupted on the other end as the Orion Axis Space Facility celebrated their success. The sounds of clapping and shouts of encouragement filled the cabin. Leon and Ruby exchanged grins, feeling the weight of the moment. Ruby tapped her helmet. "Well, guess we can take these off now." She unfastened it and set it aside, taking a deep breath of the cabin air. "Wow, even the air tastes futuristic," Leon chuckled, removing his helmet too. "Yeah, I don't think the air tastes different, but sure, let's call it futuristic." Their moment of wonder was abruptly interrupted by a loud, rumbling noise that echoed through the cabin. Ruby froze, her smile faltering. "What was that?" Another rumble followed, this time accompanied by a loud, unmistakable snore. Ruby turned her head slowly, her expression souring as she saw Bubba floating upside down in his seat, snoring like a buzzsaw. His chubby cheeks puffed out with each exhale, his helmet dangling awkwardly from one hand. Ruby crossed her arms, rolling her eyes. "Seriously? This idiot ruined the vibe already." Leon stifled a laugh, shaking his head. "Yeah, pretty much. But what can we do? As long as he's asleep, at least he's not touching anything." Ruby groaned. "I was just starting to enjoy this, and now all I can hear is his snore symphony." She mimicked a snore mockingly, earning a small chuckle from Leon. The snoring grew louder with a dramatic gurgle at the end. Bubba stirred slightly, mumbling incoherently before letting out a particularly obnoxious snort. Ruby put her hands over her ears. "I swear," Ruby said, glaring at Leon. "If he snores like this the entire mission, I'm throwing him out the airlock." Leon laughed, holding onto a handle to keep himself steady. "Ruby, that's harsh. But hey, I'm starting to see why the professor didn't let us bring music. We've got our own live orchestra right here." Ruby sighed dramatically, floating toward the front console. "Fine, but I'm not calling him Beethoven. More like Bubbanato." Leon laughed louder, shaking his head. "All right, Bubbanato it is." He leaned back slightly, gazing out the window again. The stunning view of Earth below them filled him with renewed determination. As Bubba's snores settled into a steady rhythm, Leon and Ruby shared a knowing look, finding a moment of humor amidst the surreal reality of being in space. "Welcome to Team G16, Leon said with a wry grin, gesturing toward their snoring teammate. Ruby smirked. "This is going to be one heck of a mission." The two of them burst into quiet laughter, their shared camaraderie solidifying as they prepared for whatever lay ahead. Leon moved through the narrow chamber at the back of the spacecraft, checking pressure levels and ensuring the equipment was functioning properly. He jotted down some notes on the pad attached to his wrist, muttering to himself, "Pressure stable. No leaks. Everything looks fine." Back in the main cabin, Ruby sat alone, enjoying the brief calm, aside from the sound of Bubba's persistent snoring. She leaned her head back, taking a moment to relax. But then, Bubba's snoring stopped. Ruby glanced over and noticed his eyes fluttering open. She tensed up, immediately suspicious. "Huh, you're up?" she said cautiously. Bubba stretched with a groggy yawn, then sniffled. "Yeah, I think I'm feeling better." Achoo! Ruby froze as a massive sneeze erupted from Bubba. Time seemed to slow as a glob of green mucus launched into the air, shimmering in the cabin's artificial light. It floated weightlessly, spreading into smaller droplets. Ruby's eyes widened in horror. "Oh no! Oh no!" She unbuckled herself and began floating around the cabin, trying to dodge the mucus. The globules seemed to follow her. "Why does it feel like this stuff has a mind of its own?" she shrieked, flailing as she narrowly avoided another blob. Bubba, oblivious to the chaos he'd caused, scratched his head. Why are you freaking out? It's just a little mucus." "A little?" Ruby shot back, still maneuvering around the cabin. "You've turned this place into a zero-gravity mucus battlefield." Bubba sniffed loudly. "Sorry, my bad. I think I'm allergic to space or something." Ruby clenched her fists, floating just out of range of a particularly large glob. "You're not allergic to space. You're just gross. Who sneezes like that? Have you never heard of a tissue?" Bubba looked genuinely confused. Tissues don't work in zero gravity, do they? Meanwhile, Leon, who was finishing his safety checks, heard the commotion from the cabin. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Not again? What now? As he prepared to head back, something green floated past him, narrowly missing his shoulder. Leon stopped dead in his tracks, staring at the viscous blob as it drifted through the air. What the? He muttered, shifting against the wall to let it pass. Then a familiar figure came barreling toward him. Leon, help! Bubba cried, floating clumsily through the chamber. Leon held up a hand to stop him. Whoa, whoa, what's going on now? She's mad at me, Bubba said, pointing behind him. Leon groaned. What did you do this time? I sneezed, maybe a little too hard. A little? Leon raised an eyebrow and sighed. All right, let's get back to the cabin. As Leon opened the cabin door, he was met with chaos. Ruby was hovering in the middle of the room, swatting at floating blobs of mucus with a piece of fabric, her face twisted in disgust. The moment she saw Leon, she launched toward him and wrapped her arms around him. Leon, don't you dare leave me alone with him again, she exclaimed dramatically. Leon awkwardly patted her on the back. Okay, but what exactly happened here? Ruby pulled back and gestured around the cabin. What happened? That happened! She pointed at the floating mucus blobs. Leon's jaw dropped slightly. Uh-oh. We better clean this up before it gets into the vents. No kidding, Ruby snapped. And keep him away from me. She shot a glare at Bubba, who floated into the room looking sheepish. Sorry, guys, Bubba said, scratching the back of his neck. I'll help clean up. He reached out for a blob, but instead of catching it, he accidentally pushed it toward Ruby. Ah! Ruby screamed, dodging it again. You're making it worse. Leon sighed and grabbed a small vacuum from the equipment locker. All right, let's just handle this before it turns into a science experiment. Meanwhile, at the Orion Axis Space Facility, Professor Evans was reviewing the data coming in from Team G16's spacecraft. Beside him, Professor Matt sipped his coffee, watching the feed with mild interest. Evans, Matt began, setting his cup down. Do you really think Leon can handle this mission? I mean, it's no small task. Evans smiled, leaning back in his chair. Matt, I have full confidence in Leon. He's just like his dad, Frank Morris. Both of them have the same unyielding spirit to tackle the impossible. Matt raised an eyebrow. You mean the same spirit that got Frank lost in space? Evans chuckled. Details. Just then, a notification popped up on the screen, showing a live feed from the spacecraft's cabin. The scientists watched as Leon floated around, using the vacuum to suck up floating mucus, while Ruby shouted directions, and Bubba fumbled clumsily in the background. Matt pointed at the screen. And you're sure this team is up to the task? Evans smirked. Oh, absolutely. If they can survive each other, they can survive anything. The two professors laughed as they continued monitoring the mission, their faith in the team somehow undeterred by the chaos unfolding in space. The cabin was unusually calm. Leon leaned back in his seat, glancing at the controls to ensure everything was running smoothly. Bubba, for once, wasn't causing chaos, sitting across from Leon with a content grin. Leon broke the silence. Hey Bubba, we've got some time. Why don't you tell me more about yourself? Bubba chuckled, scratching the back of his head. Oh man, I can't believe I forgot to give you a proper intro. Where do I even start? The beginning usually works, Leon said with a small smile. Bubba nodded. All right, so I was born in the good old USA. My dad's a businessman, runs a company back home. Impressive, Leon said, nodding. Why'd you decide to join a space program? Well, Bubba said, leaning back thoughtfully, I've always been fascinated by space, you know? The stars, the planets. It's like this giant, endless playground. I wanted to be part of it, to see it with my own eyes. Leon nodded again. That's a good reason. And your mom? Bubba smiled warmly. She's a nurse at a hospital. She's the one who taught me how to care for others. Well, when I'm not accidentally sneezing on them. Leon chuckled softly. Sounds like she's a good person. She is, Bubba said with pride. I'm an only child, though. It's just the three of us. Leon nodded thoughtfully. That's nice. A tight-knit family. Bubba leaned forward. All right, your turn, Leon. Tell me about yourself. Leon hesitated briefly, then said, I'm Leon Morris. I'm from Germany. My father was, Well, he was a lot like me, an astronaut in this same space organization. Bubba's eyes lit up. Wait, Frank Morris? The scientist? Man, I've read about him. He was a legend. What happened to him? Leon's expression dimmed and he sighed, his voice softening. He got lost in space. It was during a mission years ago. He never came back. I was too young to understand at the time. But now it's my job to carry on his work, to fulfill his dream of capturing the first clear image of a black hole. Bubba's usual playful demeanor softened. Leon, wow, I'm sorry. That's a lot to carry. Leon shook his head. It's okay. It's not a burden. It's a purpose. My father's work was important, and I want to honor him by finishing what he started. Bubba nodded solemnly, his usual goofy grin replaced by a genuine look of admiration. You've got guts, man. Your dad would be proud. Leon offered a small smile, grateful for the sentiment. Thanks, Bubba. That means a lot. Bubba, sensing the weight of the moment, hesitated but asked, So, do you have siblings? Your mom? Leon's expression softened. Yeah, my mom is a homemaker. She's been my rock, always encouraging me, even when things were tough. And my sister, she's 2 years older than me. She's studying at a university back in Germany. She's brilliant, but we don't get to see each other much these days. Life keeps us busy. Bubba nodded, his respect for Leon deepening. You're carrying a lot, Leon. Your dad's dream, your family's hopes, and still, here you are, leading this mission. Leon shrugged slightly. I'm just doing what I can. We all have something we're fighting for. Bubba leaned back, crossing his arms. Well, you're not alone in this. I know I might not seem like much, but if you need anything, I'm here. You're not just a leader, you're my friend. Leon looked at him, surprised by the sincerity. He extended a hand. Thanks, Bubba. That means a lot. Bubba shook his hand firmly. We've got this, Leon, together. Leon nodded, his resolve strengthened by the shared moment. As Ruby returned from the back chamber, she raised an eyebrow at the unusual camaraderie. Did I miss something? She asked, smirking. Leon glanced at Bubba and chuckled. Just a little bonding session. Bubba grinned. Don't worry, Ruby. We're all a team here. Team G16. Ruby rolled her eyes playfully but smiled. All right then. Let's see if this team can survive the mission without more sneezing disasters. Leon chuckled, the tension lifting as the trio prepared for the challenges ahead, united by purpose and growing trust. An alarm blared sharply, pulling the crew's attention. Leon glanced at the controls, his face set with determination. All right, team, Leon announced. We're approaching the warp run point. Everyone, get to your seats and buckle up. Bubba, rubbing his eyes from a short nap, stretched and yawned. So, we're at the black hole now, right? Leon shook his head, amused. No, not yet. This is where we jump to the Conduit 16 galaxy. That's where the black hole is located. Oh, Bubba replied, looking slightly disappointed. Guess I'll wait for the real show. Ruby smirked and rolled her eyes. You might want to stay awake for this part. It's not every day you get to experience light-speed travel. The three crew members secured themselves in their seats, checking belts and ensuring all systems were functioning. Leon's hands hovered over the controls as he prepared for the jump. Engaging warp drive in 3, 2, 1, Leon announced. The spacecraft's engines roared, the cabin vibrating slightly as streaks of light enveloped the windows. Stars stretched into brilliant trails, and the view outside transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors. Bubba's jaw dropped as he gripped his seat. This is awesome! Bubba shouted over the sound, grinning like a kid on a roller coaster. Ruby, though equally impressed, was too focused to respond, her hands gripping her armrests tightly. Leon's calm voice cut through the excitement. Hold tight. We'll reach the Conduit 16 galaxy in a few minutes. The seconds ticked by, and finally, the streaks of light condensed into stationary points again. A vast, breathtaking view unfolded outside the windows. They had arrived. Leon's voice was calm but filled with pride. We made it. He reached for the communicator. Base, this is Team G16. We've successfully arrived at the Conduit 16 galaxy. For a moment, static filled the cabin before the crackling voice of the Orion Research Facility replied. Team G16, congratulations! The first phase of the mission is complete. The scientists and crew at the base erupted into applause, celebrating the milestone. Leon turned to Ruby. Ruby, look outside! Ruby unbuckled her belt and moved to the window. She gasped, her eyes widening at the view. Far in the distance, a massive black hole loomed, its edges shimmering with distorted light. Around it, stars glowed like glitter scattered on a dark canvas. It's beautiful, Ruby whispered, her voice filled with awe. Leon joined her, staring out with a mixture of wonder and determination. This is what we came for. All of this. My dad would have wanted us to see it. Ruby placed a hand on Leon's shoulder. We're going to complete this mission, Leon. For your dad, and for all of us. On the other side of the cabin, Bubba unbuckled his seat and floated toward the window, bumping into a panel in the process. Whoa, check it out! That's the biggest donut I've ever seen! Ruby groaned but couldn't help smirking. Bubba, it's a black hole, not a donut. Yeah, but it kinda looks like one, Bubba replied, grinning. You can't unsee it now, can you? Ruby shook her head. Thanks, Bubba. You just ruined the most awe-inspiring moment of my life. Back on Earth, in the Orion Research Facility, Evans and Matt monitored the spacecraft's data. Suddenly, the communicator emitted static, and the connection was lost. Uh-oh, Matt muttered, adjusting the controls. We've lost communication with Team G16. Evans remained calm, leaning forward. Don't worry. Leon is resourceful. He's just like his father, focused, determined, and ready for anything. If anyone can handle this mission, it's him. Matt nodded, though concern lingered on his face. I hope you're right. Leon and Ruby stood near the large observation window, mesmerized by the vast expanse of space. The stars sparkled like diamonds scattered across the void, and colorful nebulae swirled in vibrant hues. The black hole loomed in the distance, its gravitational pull visible as light bent around it. This is unreal, Ruby whispered, pressing her palms against the glass-like panel. Leon nodded, his gaze fixed on the celestial display. It's everything I imagined and more. You can read about space a million times, but nothing prepares you for seeing it like this. Ruby glanced at Leon, a small smile tugging at her lips. Your dad would have loved this moment, Leon. You're making his dream a reality. Leon smiled back, though his expression held a hint of sadness. Thanks, Ruby. That means a lot. I just hope I can do him proud. You already have, Ruby replied sincerely. She looked out again, her eyes scanning the vibrant hues of the nebula. You ever wonder, Leon? What's out there beyond even what we can see? All the time, Leon admitted. It's humbling, isn't it, knowing how small we are in all of this? Ruby nodded, her voice thoughtful. Yeah, but it's also exciting. Like, we're part of something bigger. We get to explore, understand, and maybe even make a difference. Leon chuckled softly. You sound like a philosopher now. Maybe I missed my calling, Ruby quipped. But seriously, Leon, doesn't it just make you feel alive? Alive, inspired, terrified, all at once, Leon admitted. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. As they continued their conversation, neither noticed Bubba, who had slowly drifted out of his seat. His wide-eyed wonder shifted to curiosity as he looked around the cabin. Spotting an unmarked chamber door, he floated toward it, his movements deliberate yet clumsy in zero gravity. Inside the main cabin, Ruby and Leon remained lost in their discussion. You know, Ruby began, I used to think space was just cold, empty darkness. But seeing all this, it's like looking at the greatest art ever made. Leon smiled. It's a masterpiece, all right. And we're lucky enough to be standing in the gallery. Yeah, Ruby agreed. Though I could do without the snoring exhibit. She glanced at where Bubba had been sitting and frowned. Where's Bubba? Leon turned his head, realizing Bubba's seat was empty. He blinked and chuckled. Figures. Leave it to Bubba to wander off. Ruby sighed. He's probably just floating around looking for snacks. Let's not worry about him for a minute. Leon nodded, his focus returning to the stars. You know, Ruby, for all the chaos Bubba brings, he's got one thing right. What's that? He doesn't overthink things. Maybe there's something to be said for just enjoying the ride, Leon mused. Ruby smirked. You're not suggesting we take lessons from Bubba, are you? Leon laughed. Not exactly, but maybe. A little less worrying, a little more living in the moment, like right now. Ruby nodded, her gaze softening. Yeah, right now. A romantic interlude and a sudden alarm. The soft hum of the spaceship's systems filled the cabin as Leon and Ruby stood by the observation window, their gazes lost in the stars. For a moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the universe. You know, Leon, Ruby began, breaking the silence. I never thought I'd ever get to see something like this. Space, the stars, it's magical. Leon smiled shyly. Yeah, it's breathtaking, like a dream come true. Ruby turned to him, her eyes sparkling. I mean, I'm glad it's with you. I don't think I'd feel this safe out here with anyone else. Leon's heart skipped a beat. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words caught in his throat. Thanks, Ruby. That means a lot. Ruby tilted her head, studying him. Leon, you're always so composed, so focused. But right now, you look like you're holding something back. Leon glanced away, his cheeks reddening. It's nothing. Just thinking about the mission. You know, making sure everything goes perfectly. Ruby stepped closer, a playful smile on her lips. Leon, we're in the middle of space, surrounded by the most beautiful view anyone could imagine. It's okay to take a moment and just be human. Leon chuckled nervously. You're right. I guess I'm not great at that sometimes. Ruby's voice softened. Hey, it's okay. You're doing great, Leon. I mean it. You've got this amazing ability to keep us all together, even when things get crazy. Leon hesitated, his gaze meeting hers. He felt a warmth in his chest, but couldn't muster the courage to say what he truly felt. Before he could respond, a loud, piercing alarm blared throughout the spacecraft. The sudden alarm. The lights in the cabin flickered red, and a mechanical voice announced, "Warning, exit initiated. Warning, exit initiated." Leon and Ruby snapped to attention. What's happening? Ruby asked, her voice laced with panic. Leon rushed to the dashboard, his fingers flying over the controls. It says someone opened the external exit chamber. Ruby's eyes widened. What? How is that possible? We're the only ones here. Leon's brow furrowed. Exactly. It's just the three of us. Me, you, and... He trailed off, realization dawning. Ruby's face paled. Wait, where's Bubba? Leon spun around, his eyes scanning the cabin. Bubba's seat was empty. Ruby let out an exasperated gasp. No way! No freaking way! The two of them rushed to the observation window. Through the glass, they spotted a figure in a spacesuit, helmet on, floating aimlessly in the void of space. Is that Bubba? Ruby said, her voice rising in disbelief. Leon groaned. It's Bubba. Ruby threw her hands in the air. What is he doing out there? And why isn't he tethered to the spacecraft? Leon grabbed the radio and dialed the command center. Evans, this is G16. We have a situation. Do you copy? A crackling voice responded. This is Evans. We read you, G16. What's going on? Leon took a deep breath. Bubba somehow opened the exit chamber and is floating in space. He's untethered. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Evans spoke again. Repeat that, G16? Ruby leaned into the microphone, exasperated. You heard him right. Bubba's out in space, floating around without a grappling hook. Back at the Orion Space Axis Command, the room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. Professor Matt turned to Evans. Uh-oh, that's not great. Evans pinched the bridge of his nose. Not great? It's a disaster. How did this even happen? Matt shrugged. I don't know. Maybe Bubba thought he was on a space safari? Evans sighed and grabbed the microphone. Leon, how bad is it? Can you retrieve him? Leon glanced at the floating Bubba, who seemed oblivious to the danger and was waving enthusiastically at the ship. We're assessing options, but it's not looking good. He's drifting further by the second. Ruby cut in, her voice sharp. He's out there acting like he's on vacation. You better believe we'll have a long talk about this later. Evan's voice came back, calm but firm. Leon, focus. Use whatever resources you have to get him back. We're here to guide you. Leon nodded, determination settling over his face. Understood, Evans. We'll handle it. Evans leaned back in his chair, muttering under his breath. Frank Morris never had days like this. Matt smirked. Well, Leon's got his dad's courage and a team with character. Evans shot him a look. Not helping Matt. Leon disconnected the radio, taking a deep breath as the gravity of the situation set in. He turned to Ruby, who was still staring out the observation window at Bubba's drifting form. I need to save him, Leon said, breaking the tense silence. Ruby spun around, her voice edged with panic. What? How are you going to do that? Leon's expression was resolute. I need to get Bubba back before it's too late. Ruby stepped closer, her hands gripping his arm. Leon, please, it's risky out there. What if something happens to you? I can't lose you. Leon placed his hands gently on her shoulders, his gaze steady. You won't lose me, Ruby. Trust me on this. Ruby's eyes glistened, her voice faltering. But? Leon cupped her cheek, his voice soft yet firm. If we wait even one more second, Bubba will drift too far, and we'll lose him for good. Sure, he's not the easiest guy to deal with, but he's our teammate, and this mission, it's ours. We don't leave anyone behind. Ruby stared at him, searching his eyes for any sign of doubt, but found none. She swallowed hard and nodded. Promise me you'll be safe. Leon smiled faintly. I promise. Ruby pulled him into a tight hug, holding on to him as if she could anchor him to safety. Leon patted her back gently before stepping away. Okay, he said. Hand me the ultra-con-micro pixel camera that Evans designed. Ruby frowned as she retrieved the sleek, compact device from the equipment rack. What are you planning to do with this? Leon took the camera, securing it to his suit. 2-in-1. I'll use it to snap the picture we need for the mission and to signal Bubba that I'm coming for him. Let's hope this thing lives up to Evans' claims. Ruby nodded reluctantly, her voice trembling. Be careful, Leon. Leon gave her a reassuring smile before stepping into the airlock chamber. Scene shift, Orion Space Axis Command Center. The command center was in chaos. Scientists and technicians buzzed around frantically, some furiously typing commands, while others argued heatedly near the main console. Professor Matt threw his hands up. What were you thinking, Evans? Putting Bubba on this team was a disaster waiting to happen. Another scientist chimed in, her voice sharp. He's a liability. Leon and Ruby are brilliant, but Bubba? He's a walking catastrophe. Evans, standing at the center of the room, pinched the bridge of his nose in frustration. Enough. I made the call, and it stands. Bubba is part of this team for a reason. Matt scoffed. Reason? What reason? Because he's comedic relief? Evans's tone hardened. No, because he balances the team. They're not just specialists, they're people. Leon, Ruby, and Bubba, each of them brings something unique. And don't forget who's out there leading this mission, Leon Morris. If anyone can handle this, it's him. A younger scientist crossed his arms. Still, Bubba's antics could jeopardize everything. He shouldn't even be on that ship. Evans shot him a sharp look. And yet, Leon and Ruby haven't abandoned him, because they understand something you clearly don't. Teamwork. We don't leave anyone behind, ever. The room fell silent, tension thick in the air. Matt finally sighed, shaking his head. I hope you're right, Evans, for all our sakes. Evans glanced at the monitor showing the spacecraft's live feed, his voice steady but laced with determination. I am right. Leon and Ruby will handle it, just like Frank would have. The room murmured uneasily, but returned to work, their faith in Leon begrudgingly reinforced. This scene Leon, tethered to the spacecraft by the grappling hook, moved carefully through the vast blackness of space. The stars twinkled faintly, but his focus was locked on Bubba's drifting form in the distance. He steadied his breathing, ensuring every movement was deliberate and precise. Suddenly, a proximity alert sounded in Ruby's cockpit. A blinking red light flashed on the dashboard. Ruby's heart skipped a beat as the spacecraft's sensors detected an object hurtling through the void. She quickly scanned the readings and gasped as her eyes caught sight of a large, jagged piece of a derelict satellite tumbling directly toward Leon. Grabbing the communicator, Ruby's voice rang out, panicked. "Leon, watch out! There's a satellite piece heading straight for you." Leon turned his head just in time to see the satellite fragment closing in on him. His pulse quickened. He tried to push himself out of its path, but space offered no friction, no quick escape. Before he could fully evade it, the satellite struck his shoulder. The impact jolted him violently, spinning him in the void. The satellite splintered into pieces from the collision, its broken wing careening off toward the spacecraft. Inside the cockpit, Ruby's voice crackled through the comms. "Leon, are you okay? Please respond." Leon groaned, his head spinning slightly as he steadied himself. "I'm fine," he said, breathing heavily. "Just a little shaken up. I'll make it to Bubba." Ruby exhaled in relief. "All right, be careful. We can't afford any more surprises." As Leon adjusted his position, another sensor alert blared in the spacecraft. Ruby glanced at the display and froze. A larger, jagged piece of the satellite's wing was tumbling toward the ship at alarming speed. "Oh no, what now?" she muttered, switching to the communicator. "Leon, the satellite wing is coming toward the ship." Leon glanced back toward the spacecraft and saw the glint of metal in the distance. His voice tightened. "Uh-oh, Ruby, you need to move the ship. Now!" Ruby's eyes widened. "Move the ship? I don't even know how to pilot this thing, Leon." "Ruby, just press something. Anything. Figure it out." Leon's voice was urgent as he watched the massive fragment draw closer. Ruby scanned the dashboard in panic, her hands trembling. The wing was dangerously close now, its jagged edges glinting menacingly in the starlight. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she pressed random buttons, hoping for a miracle. The spacecraft jolted forward suddenly, its thrusters firing at full speed. The movement was just enough to dodge the incoming debris, which hurtled past the ship, narrowly missing it by mere meters. Ruby let out a breathless laugh, slumping in her seat. "Oh my God! I don't know what I pressed, but it worked." Leon, watching from the void, exhaled in relief. That was the emergency push forward button. Lucky guess. Ruby leaned back, her heart still racing. Lucky guess? Let's call it instinct. Leon smiled faintly, though his body ached from the collision. Whatever it was, you saved the ship. Now, back to Bubba before anything else decides to make this mission harder. Ruby nodded, gripping the controls tightly. "Just be careful out there, Leon." Leon turned back toward Bubba, his determination renewed, but the tension of the close calls lingered, adding weight to the already dangerous mission. Leon floated steadily, the blackness of space stretching infinitely around him. The grappling hooks secured him and Bubba together, their lifeline to the spacecraft tethered tightly. Bubba, still groggy from his accidental escapade, drifted quietly, his helmet slightly tilted as if he were in a deep sleep. "We got him," Leon said, his voice calm but filled with relief. Inside the spacecraft, Ruby exhaled deeply and immediately activated the communication line. Orion Axis, come in! Leon got him. Both are stable and secure. The response from the Orion Space Axis Command Center was immediate. Cheers erupted through the static of the communicator, the sounds of clapping and jubilant shouts audible in the background. Evans's voice rose above the commotion. See? I told you. I can always count on Leon. Leon smiled faintly at the words but didn't respond. His gaze shifted beyond the spacecraft, drawn to the haunting beauty of the black hole in the far distance. It loomed like a dark jewel surrounded by swirling light, its gravitational pull evident in the way stars bent and danced near its event horizon. Ruby's voice came through the communicator. Leon, are you okay out there? Leon didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared at the black hole, his voice barely above a whisper. It's the moment, Dad. Your dream. You'd be proud if you were here with me. He reached for the ultra-con micropixel camera that Evans had designed, its sleek metallic body gleaming under the distant starlight. Leon positioned it carefully, adjusting the focus to its maximum precision. His hands were steady as he framed the black hole in the camera's viewfinder. Ruby, he said, his voice steady now, I'm taking the shot. Ruby, watching from the spacecraft, glanced at the dashboard monitor, her heart racing. Go for it, Leon. We've got your back. Leon clicked the button. A faint mechanical sound echoed in the silence of space as the camera captured the first image. He adjusted the angle slightly, ensuring every detail of the black hole was in focus. Click, click, click. 4 images, each more breathtaking than the last, captured the beauty and mystery of the black hole. The swirling accretion disk, the intense light bending around its edge, and the sheer darkness of its core, all perfectly immortalized. Leon transmitted the images directly to the Orion Space Axis facility. The moment the data was received, the entire command center erupted in cheers again. Scientists crowded around monitors, marveling at the clarity and detail of the images. Evan's voice boomed through the communicator. Team G16, you've done it. Leon, Ruby, Bubba, this is history in the making. Congratulations! Ruby leaned toward the monitor, her eyes wide with awe as the images displayed on the screen. Wow, Leon, she whispered, her voice filled with admiration. You did it. Finally. It's incredible. Leon looked at the black hole one last time before turning his attention to Bubba. The spacefarer mumbled something incoherent in his sleep, oblivious to the historic moment. Leon couldn't help but chuckle. All right, Bubba, time to get back inside, Leon said, gently pulling the tether as he began maneuvering toward the spacecraft. Ruby's voice came through the communicator again, softer this time. Leon, you're amazing. You know that, right? Leon smiled but didn't respond. His focus remained on getting himself and Bubba back safely. Leon and Bubba, tethered together, drifted steadily toward the spacecraft. Leon carefully navigated, keeping a close eye on the distance left. Bubba remained unconscious, oblivious to the peril they faced. As they drew closer to the ship, Leon felt a sudden jolt. The tension in the grappling line vanished. He turned his head just in time to see the snapped hook floating away. Oh shit! Leon cursed, his heart pounding. Inside the spacecraft, Ruby saw everything unfold from the window, her eyes widened in shock. No, Leon, the hook, it's disconnected, she yelled into the communicator. Leon's voice came through, tense but calm. I see it, Ruby. The hook snapped. It must have been worn out. I'm trying to stabilize us, but Bubba's weight. Ruby made a quick decision. Without hesitation, she grabbed her astronaut suit and quickly suited up. She attached her grappling line to the ship, securing it tightly. Hold on, Leon, Ruby said firmly over the communicator. I'm coming for you! Ruby, wait, it's too risky. Leon began, but Ruby cut him off. No time for debate, Captain, Ruby replied, her voice steady but determined. She exited the spacecraft and began maneuvering toward Leon and Bubba. The cold silence of space surrounded her, broken only by the sound of her own breathing. She reached them just as they began to drift farther away. I've almost got you, Ruby said, stretching her arm toward Leon. Suddenly, a piece of old satellite debris tumbling through space hurtled toward them. Leon spotted it first. "Ruby, watch out!" he shouted, bracing himself instinctively. Ruby twisted her body, narrowly avoiding the debris as it whizzed past, mere inches from her helmet. "That was close," she muttered, adrenaline surging through her veins. With one last effort, Ruby managed to grab hold of Leon's suit. She activated her grappling hook and began pulling them all back toward the spacecraft. The strain was immense, but she didn't let go. As they approached the ship's airlock, Ruby guided them inside with careful precision. Once inside, she secured the door and activated the airlock sequence. The three of them were safe. Leon removed his helmet, taking a deep breath. He looked at Ruby, his expression a mix of gratitude and admiration. "Ruby, you saved us. Thank you." Ruby, also removing her helmet, smiled faintly. "You taught me about teamwork, Leon. I finally understood what it means to look out for your teammates." Bubba, still unconscious, let out a loud snore. The two exchanged a glance and couldn't help but chuckle. The radio crackled to life. Evan's voice came through. "Team G16, everything all right? What's the status?" Leon pressed the communicator button. "Yes, sir. We've secured everyone. All systems are good to go." Evan sighed in relief, his voice laced with pride. "Well done, Team G16. Prepare for your return. You've made history today." Ruby looked at Leon and smiled. "Ready to go home, Captain?" Leon nodded, glancing out the window at the black hole one last time. "Let's head back. Mission accomplished." After 5 long days in space, the spacecraft had finally reached Earth's orbit. Leon, Ruby, and Bubba sat in the cabin, their mission successful and their spirits high. The sight of their home planet filled the windows, a breathtaking blue sphere surrounded by a thin veil of atmosphere. "All right, Team G16, Evans' voice came through the communicator. "In 2 minutes, you'll need to enter the ejection chamber. The capsule is ready, and our retrieval team is already stationed in the ocean where you'll land. This part's all about trust in your systems." Leon replied. "Understood, sir. Waiting for your command." As they prepared, down at the Orion Space Axis Research Facility, Dr. Hector was in his lab analyzing recent data when his system picked up a peculiar sound wave. The unusual frequency and pattern caught his attention. "Heather, come here," Dr. Hector called to his colleague. "I'm getting something significant." Heather and the team gathered around as Hector captured the sound and decoded it. The garbled transmission slowly formed into discernible text on the monitor. "Need help? Planet X." The lab fell silent as they stared at the message. "What could it mean?" one scientist whispered. Dr. Hector grabbed his tablet and rushed to Evan's control room. "Sir, we intercepted a signal. Look at this." Evan studied the message with a furrowed brow. "Planet X? Help? This is unusual." Heather suggested. "Could it be intelligent life?" Evans shook his head, his tone measured. "Whatever it is, we can't decipher it fully right now. Catalog it and secure the data. We'll revisit this once Leon's team has safely returned." Back on the spacecraft, Leon turned to his team. "All right, let's get into the ejection chamber." Ruby checked her harness and gave him a thumbs up. "Ready when you are." Leon glanced at Bubba, still snoozing. With a nudge, Bubba stirred awake. What's happening?" "Time to go home, Bubba," Leon said with a grin. As they entered the chamber, Ruby secured the lock mechanism. Leon confirmed. "Chamber locked and pressurized, sir." Evan's voice came through again. "All right, Team G16, you'll be ejected along with the capsule. Autopilot is set for descent. Expect to land in the ocean in approximately 10 minutes. Remember, Earth's gravity will feel intense after your time in space.